5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Lauren.
Hey, and I'm Ernest.
And together we're L&E Explore Books. Today I'm going to be primarily sharing books. Ernest, this was not a huge reading week for you.
Yeah, this was a lot of school focus week, so I wasn't able to do as much reading as I would love to. But yeah, well, not on my personal books, but a lot of education books I had to read for school.
Yeah. And I think that that's super real. I will certainly have weeks where I will likely not be reading very much material either. So, we are going to get started. So, my first book for you today is called Human by Amber C. Borden. So, this is a poetry collection. And what I love about it is, I'll show kind of an example. It has the different colors of the rainbow. And within each color, it has several poems that are different hues. So for example, you have poems that are in like a lighter aqua blue to a navy blue. And I find it really interesting that the creation of the hues along with emotions. And so the poems really correlate with like different pieces that could be with those emotions. And so there's a whole poem kind of talking about those different pieces. I know that for myself, one of my favorite poems was Zest, and that is in the yellow section. And a line I really liked was, belly laughing on a summer's night, cracking jokes that don't make sense, catching ourselves between reckless and regret. It is a lust for life whose soundtrack is of angel melodies and warm honey grooves that ooze 70s funk. So that was just a really cool visual imagery for me. This poetry collection definitely deals with a lot of really powerful and challenging emotions. It deals with a lot of trauma. It deals with understandings of grief and life and death, understandings of identity. And so I definitely recommend this work. I think that it is just really beautiful. I love poetry also, and so this was something as I was reading, I was able to reflect a lot of my own emotions throughout the work. Yeah, next I have Little Fires Everywhere. So a lot of folks have maybe heard about this because it is currently a Hulu series.
Yes.
That Reese Witherspoon is starring in along with Kerry Washington. And this book, I talked a little bit about it in a previous episode, but essentially what's happening is there are family secrets between these two families. Elena is the matriarch of one family and Mia is the matriarch of another. Mia's family includes Mia and her daughter Pearl. And Elena's family includes her 4 children and her husband as well. And I just found the work to be really interesting. The characters, I think one of the central questions this book is really asking is, what does it mean to be a good mother? What does it mean to support and guide your children? And I think the reality that you can create specific environments for your children and your children are still going to grow into the people that they choose and want to be. And so you see a lot of family conflict in here. You also see characters really grow or change based on their interactions with, I think Mia especially really connects with a lot of Elena's children, and just the way that they change or interact is really powerful. Lexi is definitely a powerful example of that, as well as Izzy. And overall, I think that this work has a lot of nuance. It definitely covers some heavy topics, including adoption is one piece of this, and it goes into a lot of detail in that space. There's also abortion within this work, and what does that look like, and what does that mean? Family connection and values regarding that space as well. And the work also deals a lot with, again, this idea of, I think, trying to deal with difficult situations, and how Mia is really, within this work, talks a lot about how everyone deserves second chances and how people really, like, we can't judge people essentially by, like, their most difficult and challenging moments. Like, how we connect with people is by seeing what they do after those moments.
Okay.
So, I really enjoyed it. I'm curious to see if I'll enjoy this series because I heard a couple things and I'm not entirely sure if I'm sold yet. So
Okay.
I might do a video later about how I felt about books versus
the
movies.
comparison?
Yeah,
Cool.
just in general, because I think there are a lot of books that I really love, and the movie I didn't love as much. It doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. It just means I probably wasn't like as excited.
Aragorn for me.
Aragorn for you? Would you like to expand on that?
The Aragorn series by Christopher
Oh,
Paolini.
Aragon?
Aragon?
Yeah.
Aragorn?
Aragorn is Lord of the
My bad.
Rings. That's why I was
Aragon, my bad.
confused. That's okay. Good effort. But
Alright, what's next?
next up is Glow Kids. So, this work is by Nicholas Carderis, and this book is talking about how screen addiction is hijacking our kids and how to break the trance. Okay, well, I am currently, I'm more than halfway through this book because I'm super fascinated and horrified at the same time. I have a lot of thoughts about the work. I'm actually going to read some reviews of other people as well, because I've seen some really interesting and nuanced conversations surrounding the work. Essentially, what it's talking a lot about is how much technology we allow children to utilize. And so it talks about Chromebooks, it talks about cell phones, it talks about computers and video games. So it's really talking about consumption of media and how that impacts our brain and bodies. And so there were moments in there. There's definitely a lot of science in here. I think there is some extrapolating that sometimes I feel like is meant to be a more extreme response. It's kind of like this is the most extreme reaction to what happens instead of like the spectrum of what could potentially happen. But I think it is really a thoughtful read. I definitely am reflecting on this, particularly with online learning currently going on and myself spending an increasing amount of time on technology because of working from home as well. I also think that some of the examples that they give within here, I think about myself, and I know I certainly was a child who was pretty plugged into technology and spent a lot of time. And so it talks a lot about addiction as well, and like gaming addiction, technology addiction, social media addiction. So I think it was a really helpful reminder, and I will say since reading this book, my phone has been turned off a lot more or has been further away from my body. So I definitely think it's an interesting read. I would definitely caution that if you're going into this book, it's pretty intense, and I know that I've experienced some like stressed emotions just from reading like all of the potential impacts of technology.
I like that you talked about with Glow Kids that not only did you just read a book that talks about a very like sensitive subject with a lot of research available into it, but you also went and looked at what counters that research and just looking for yourself of other sources to see like how strong is this person's arguments along with other evidence that may show to the contrary. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I was laughing because it kind of feels like a spooky read, but in a very different spooky than like murder mysteries and the like. Speaking of spooky reads, so my last book for today, and this is a book that I'm planning to read next once I'm done with Glow Kids, is called One of Us is Lying. So this is a book where there are 5 teenagers that are main parts of this book. One of them is dead, has been murdered. And so what they found out was that this particular student was the head of like a gossip, essentially like social media. And he was about to reveal information that was very juicy and problematic about the other 4 main characters. And so what you are going to be doing as a reader is trying to evaluate who was involved with the murder. Was it any of them, or was it potentially someone else who actually wasn't a part of the 4? And so I'm looking forward to this work. I love a good whodunit.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if it's a narration from their point of views.
Yeah,
so if it makes you think. Can you trust them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't read any of it yet, so I'll have to let y'all know like what kind of narration strategy is utilized for this work, because I do think that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
If you're hearing it from everyone's point of view, or if you have like an outsider narrator who's maybe like observing all 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure of the narration structure yet, but that's my last book, and that's by Karen M. McManus is the author of that work. Yeah, I think overall that's our reading update. I am officially, well, how many books have you read this year? So I'm officially at 71 books for the
I
year.
believe I'm at 28.
Awesome. What was your goal for the year?
I think my goal is 30.
So
Well,
you're...
no. Okay, I can't be 28. I must be like 23. Because I know
That's
I'm
still pretty
behind.
good. You're super close
There's
to your
no way.
goal.
I was like, I'm not that close.
So my goal is 100, so I've still got 29 books
wait.
to go. Did you make your goal
Mine's
50 this year? Yeah.
So yes, I'm around 28. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're about
I'm
half.
just like, I wish I made it 30. That's what I should have done.
You can change it, you know. You could change it to
That's true.
30 and make yourself feel
I'm not
better
gonna do
about
it.
it.
I want to try to.
Yeah, my goal is 100. I don't know if I'll quite make 100, but I'm at 71, so I feel pretty good about my reading overall. I'm definitely, when you go to Goodreads, it tells you if you're on track or not, and I definitely was not on track
I'm
last
8 books
time.
behind right now.
Yeah, well, mine changed it, so it doesn't say how many books behind. It just says you're on track. So I don't know what
wow.
has happened. So maybe they felt some empathy for
like,
us stressed out
For
book
100
readers.
yeah. And next week I'll provide updates. Well, I'll finish my first light novel reading for you guys, ReZero, and I will update you on Imaginary Friends because I will make more progress.
Yeah.
Less busy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you,
I hope you
everyone.
have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.